Welcome to the Bothering Strangers podcast. I'm Max Hearing. My guest today is a member of the Obrador basketball team in La Liga ACB in Spain, and as well as a member of the Israeli national basketball team. My guest today is Jake Cohen. Jake, how's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
This shouldn't be a surprise to you, but you are my tallest guest so far.
That's a great honor. Thank you.
You're like I'm 6'11". I don't think anyone's gonna be taller than me. So let's just get right to it. You were playing in Israel, mainly with Maccabi Tel Aviv. You were playing in Israel from once you left college, for once you left Davidson University to just until like up until recently. So what made you want to what made you decide to leave Maccabi Tel Aviv and join the Spanish league?
Well, actually, I played for a year in Greece in 2015, 2016. So this is not my first year outside of Israel as a pro. But yeah, so my contract expired at the end of last season. And it was pretty much as simple as just the contract negotiations didn't work out between us, between Maccabi and I, as to getting an extension done. So found an opportunity elsewhere. And Obradoiro plays in an amazing league, the ACB. It's one of the best leagues in the world. The Spanish, not just the Spanish players that are really good, the clubs are professional and the league is well run. So it's a very good opportunity for me to increase my reputation, so to speak, outside of Israel to get a little bit of different exposure for my career.
Is that so obviously Israel does have one of the bigger leagues outside of the NBA, but is that like a problem in Israel where like it is a big league, but it's getting larger amounts of exposure is harder to do?
Well, there's Maccabi who plays in EuroLeague, and obviously Maccabi has a lot of prestige and that sort of thing. But the Israeli league it's good, but it's not great. It's like playing in the Israeli league is certainly better than playing in, I don't know, Finland for instance, but it's not as good as playing in Spain or Turkey or the Russian VTB league. So there's just like different rankings for how good the reputation of the league is. Obviously, playing good in a better league is going to be better for you than playing good in a really bad league.
Oh, right, sure. So you're correct me if I'm wrong, but you're listed as an Israeli now. Well, for many years.
Yeah, I have two passports. I'm Israeli and American. Yeah.
So did you think? I mean, you're Jewish, but you're American. Did you think that growing up that your like Judaism would come into play as much as it did, so much that you were
No,
playing on the Israeli national
no,
team?
not at all. It's kind of one of the like serendipitous things that have happened in my life, having the bar mitzvah that led me to get my Israeli passport later in life. I remember, giving my parents such a hard time taking me to Hebrew school and Sunday school and all that stuff. Like, you're 12 years old. You want to play on Sunday mornings. You want to hang out with your friends on Tuesdays after school. You don't want to drive to the temple but ended up getting my bar mitzvah, and that paved the way for me getting my passport years later. So it's been really cool. I'd never imagined that one thing would lead to another. I mean, I was so naive. Even when I got my passport, um, the Israeli national team approached me after my freshman year at Davidson and asked if I'd like to represent the Israeli national team for the under 20 European championships. And I just thought it was a cool opportunity. I didn't know anything about professional basketball in Europe and how valuable that passport would be for my professional career. I just thought it was a cool idea to go play in Europe for a summer. So, like, yeah, I'll do it. Not knowing that that passport gives me all sorts of job security and other opportunities that I wouldn't have if I just had an American passport trying to play in Europe.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think by virtue of you being Jewish, you and now having an Israeli passport, like you when you played in Israel, you didn't count as an international player.
That's correct. Yeah. So when I first got to Israel, if you have an Israeli passport, you are Israeli. Unfortunately, now the Israeli League has put in some rules that limit the amount of people like me, Israeli Americans, that you can have on your team, because there have been a fair number of American Jewish players that go to Israel. They've sort of bounced back, or tried to limit the number of times this can happen. So now there's a restriction on how many American Jews you can have, American Israelis you can have on a team. But when I first got there, that you were full Israeli as soon as you got your passport.
Well, Maccabi Tel Aviv's been scooping up a lot of those guys like yourself.
Yeah, but it's not just them. Almost all teams in the league try to sign these guys for various reasons, and unfortunately now there's a restriction as to how many can go. And I say unfortunately because I had such a great experience playing in Israel, and I'm worried that these rules will limit someone like me who's younger and won't have that opportunity to go and to live in Israel and to have the experience I had because of these rules.
How's your Hebrew now after living in Israel all those years?
It's definitely not as good as it should be. I would try to work on my Hebrew and speak Hebrew, and they'd recognize my accent and speak English back to me. Because
That's how Israelis are.
yeah, that's the English speaking in that country is at such a high level. It kind of like coddles you into a sense of, oh, I don't need to learn the language. Everyone speaks English. So I can talk basketball pretty well, and I can order food really well,
Always.
and I can curse. I can curse really well. So I got those three things down.
Everything that matters, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was just gonna. I didn't know about the new rules in the Israeli league regarding American Israeli players, and that definitely does change things. When you went to Davidson, the year after Steph Curry left, and then you played there for 4 years. Were you trying to go to the NBA? Like, what was your path? I mean, you played in the NBA summer league.
Hmm.
You were on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I I never thought about, like, of course I dreamed about playing in the NBA, but I never thought about it realistically. I never really thought about being a professional realistically. Um, when I was in high school, all I wanted to do was get a D1 scholarship. And then once I got a D1 scholarship, all I wanted to do was play in March Madness, because that was like my favorite thing ever growing up. I didn't think about the next level. I wasn't playing at Davidson to try to become a pro. I was playing at Davidson to try to win the conference tournament and make it to the dance. So the pro thing, this whole experience has just been one long bonus for me. The fact that people want to pay me to do it is pretty incredible. So I'm just going to see where this whole thing leads me.
And what about when you were approached about playing on the Israeli national team, not the U20 team, but like the men's team? Was that were you surprised, or was it like, where was your head at with all that?
Yeah, a little surprised. Definitely felt honored. And now that I've played on the national team for a long time now, I think we just got done. We played in November. We played 2 games in November. Um, I think that was like my 5th or 6th year playing with the Israeli national team. So it's been going on for a long time now, and it's another one of those things I never would have anticipated as a younger person, and it's been such a gift for me to be able to represent Israel. To play for a national team is a way different experience. It's been really neat, and I really cherish playing for the national team. It's been wonderful.
It's such a cool experience. It seems like, honestly, just playing at that level.
Yeah, it's great. The national team has a whole different atmosphere around it because you're not doing it for money or for whatever. You're just trying to represent your country and to, you know, give people something to be proud of. And that's an awesome, different set of motivations than what you usually encounter as a pro.
Do you think the teams? I feel like the team's probably in a pretty good spot right now, having where there are two Israelis in the NBA.
Yeah, well, we're so the thing we're a part of right now is we're trying to. Well, we just qualified for the European Championships, which are next summer, and we're 4-0 in our group and doing really well. So hopefully the good things continue because we've been trending upwards for a few years now, and we've got some really good young talent, as perfectly showcased by Danny Avdia. And as that young talent continues to mature, I think our national team will be in really good shape.
You brought up Denny Avdia, so you played. He's on ninth pick in the NBA draft on the Washington Wizards now. You played with him last year. What's this?
I played with Danny the last 3 years actually. He was, 3 years ago he was like the young kid on our Maccabi team. 2 years ago he was jumping back and forth between the senior and the youth team, and then last year he was with us all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking just last year because it's just like that was his consistent season
Right.
on the men's team. Uh, what's his ceiling? Yeah, I mean, like you just from what you saw, how good do you think he can be?
Well, I'm no scout,
Right.
but I'm also very biased because Danny's a friend of mine and I love him. I know his work ethic. I know what kind of person he is. So in that case, I think he can definitely be an all-star. But a lot of things in this game are not just up to your work ethic and that other sort of thing. You need to be in the right situation. You need to have the right teammates around you, the right opportunities, all that sort of thing. But if all that stuff falls into place for him, he's a really good player. He works super hard and he's a great person. So with that in his pocket, I think he has, great opportunities.
I I mean, he must have been a really really big deal in Israel.
Yeah,
Those
well, he
last
still is. Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but the Washington Wizards, they just opened up a Hebrew only Twitter account, like just to
I
promote
just heard
Danny.
about
Yeah,
that. Yeah, smart.
yeah. So that's a great idea. Yeah, but that shows you what kind of following he has in Israel.
How famous were you? Because you played for Maccabi Tel Aviv for like 3 seasons. So when you like look back, like also being 6'11", so taller than everyone else, were you like stopped a lot on the street?
Yeah, I mean, Tel Aviv is not that big a city. It's only like 1 million people. And we are the biggest show in town, so to speak. Like there's no there's a soccer team that people love and it's really big, but the Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball team is definitely like the premier sports team of Israel. So after playing there for a few years, yeah, you're going to get recognized quite a bit, and it's really cool. And it can also be mildly annoying when people are rude, but for the most part, it's very cool.
It's a nice way of putting it right there.
Yeah.
What are your are you still looking to go to the NBA if the opportunity comes?
Yeah, I mean, the odds of that happening at this point are minuscule. But sure, yeah, if an NBA team wants to offer me a contract, I'm definitely interested. But it's like saying, I don't know, am I interested in being an astronaut at this point? Like, yeah, I'd love to go to the moon.
I feel like the NBA is slightly more likely than being an
Yeah,
astronaut.
maybe slightly, but I mean,
Just
I'm 30 years old. I've been
yeah.
in Europe for 8 years. It's like that ship has sailed and it's something I'm very comfortable with.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, of course, I was saying that under the concept of like I know you were 30, and I know like obviously like the more time you spend in Europe and abroad, like the less kind of likely um your odds are. What is have you where does do you know Spanish?
No,
That's good.
not very little.
What's it like in your town? Is there a lot of English speaking span? Like, what's the situation there?
Well, right now it doesn't really matter because you can't do anything. So I'm not
Yeah.
really interacting with people. I'm just going to the grocery store and to the gym. So my lack of Spanish doesn't really come up very often. I'm hoping that when the world gets back to normal, I can start to like learn some food and talk with waiters and waitresses and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
for now, it's fine. It's like a kind of a pseudo bubble I'm living in here. Um, but yeah, times like this makes me wish I'd picked to study Spanish in college and not German.
You studied German in college?
Well, Davidson's a liberal arts school, so you have to take language, and I took 3 semesters of German.
Oh wow, that's I don't know when you thought you were gonna use that, but
Well, there's a pro league in Germany, so
yeah, no, there is a pro league, but I just think they're a lot more. For me, I was just like, oh, there are a lot more Spanish speakers though. But you're right. But I guess for you, that is
well,
actually
hindsight's 2020 here. So
yeah, it's true. It's- that's interesting. I mean, I feel like if you just want to learn how to order food, it's pretty easy. Like if that's
I've already got some food down, just from like looking at packaging in the grocery store. But yeah,
do you
I'm
know how?
hoping my wife, when she gets here, she took Spanish in school, and I'm hoping she can carry us through because in Israel, I was the Hebrew speaker out of the two of us. So
Right,
whenever
for
we
sure.
needed to interact with people, I would speak for both of us. And now I'm excited to be the one who doesn't have to do anything, and I can just let her speak for both of us.
Yeah, no, that's good. I've never really spoken with a pro player abroad or in the NBA, I guess, for that matter. But how does it work? How does it work with your family? Like, because I mean, you were in Tel Aviv for a while, but do they? But your wife's American. You have a young child. So how does that work? Do they come to live with you in Israel?
Yeah, so every player has their own. There's no like uniform rule across the board. Most guys bring their families with them, but I've also had teammates whose kids were in school back in the States, so they stayed just not to move their kids around. And like for instance, the beginning of this year, my wife is in the States right now with our daughter because uh, we had to wait a little while to get their visas and passports and shots and all that sort of thing to get them here. Um, but for the most part, guys bring their partners and kids with them, and fully immerse themselves in in the culture here.
So was your daughter born in Israel or in the States?
No, in the States. She was born in the middle of September. I flew back for the birth and then quickly came back to work here.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I knew you had a young child. I did not realize that your baby is only a couple months old.
Yeah, 3 months, 3 months old.
Oh, wow, very young. So I was just before we go, I want to talk to you about. Did you become like the funny man on the Maccabi Tel Aviv team? Because I was doing my research and I saw you were holding court, holding some interviews.
No, I wouldn't say I was the funny man. I had definitely had a specific role in the locker room, kind of as the guy everyone asked their questions for. I think I was like just the most organized one. So like, hey, Jake, what time is the game next week? Or like, when's our flight tomorrow? Or how does photosynthesis work? Those sort of
How does
questions.
photosynthesis work?
Yeah, all those questions were targeted at me. But in terms of funny man, no, we definitely had the jokesters in our locker room that was not me.
You would think that I would think at least I'll say that that professional basketball players would know when the flight is.
You would think that, yeah, but when you're taking like 100 flights a year, one can slip your mind, and sometimes it's easier just to ask the guy next to you than to pull up the schedule on your phone.
How where so being geographically in Tel Aviv, where was like far enough for you to fly within Israel? Would it be like just going down south or going
We were almost never flying in Israel. It was for all the EuroLeague games. Like we were
Okay.
flying to Moscow, to Berlin, Barcelona, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I was like, well, maybe, in
You'd
Israel.
only we only flew to one Israeli game, and that was to Eilat in the
Yeah. Yeah, no,
southeast.
that right. 'Cause that would be the farthest. So was it kind of through playing? I mean, so just a little background. It's like you play in the Israeli league, but then the top Israeli teams play in the Euro League amongst the top just professional teams outside of the NBA. And was that kind of like when you started doing that, you're like, oh, maybe like there is something for me outside of Israel.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I think playing well in the EuroLeague obviously helps you no matter what because it's the best league in the world outside the NBA. So playing for Maccabi in that league is obviously a really big thing for a player because there aren't so many opportunities like that. Um, so yeah, playing in EuroLeague is terrific for not only like for the experience of playing super high level basketball, but also for a player's resume.
Okay, one last question. What is the difference in skill between playing in the Israeli league and Israeli league games versus playing in EuroLeague games?
Uh, there's a lot different. The styles are very different. A lot of Israeli teams play more small ball type, and they tend to have like switching defenses and certain philosophies like that. Whereas EuroLeague teams are typically a lot bigger, a lot more methodical. So it's just it's a totally different style for the most part, and it's tough to adjust playing between EuroLeague and Israeli League because you're constantly going back and forth because you play EuroLeague in the middle of the week and then Israeli League on the weekend. Um, but yeah, that's probably the biggest one is that the differences in style and size.
Well, now I know.
Do you have a lot of basketball like listeners? So I feel like a bunch of them are going to be like, who cares about the differences between the Israeli League and the Euro League? But
I
is
mean,
this isn't a basketball podcast, right?
no, this is just a podcast. So I've had NBA or no NFL athletes, uh,
Okay.
a professional softball player, which she schooled me just because my knowledge was lacking. Former NFLer Jay Fiedler, and then mostly I just have on like comedians, honestly. So
Comedians. Oh gosh. All
I'm
right.
I do stand-up comedy as well. I don't know, so I'll call myself a comedian for that sake. But yeah, but so I like to diversify.
I was just wondering like how in
Yeah.
depth into the X's and O's of basketball I should be getting here. Like I don't want
No,
to
I
cater
think
to my audience, you know?
I think the amount of in depth you went was good. Where it's like, even if you don't know too much about basketball, like I think
Yeah, yeah.
small
I don't
ball is
want to
an
get too
understandable
technical
term,
here.
you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Great.
And especially because I don't think a lot of Americans are too aware of, even if you're a basketball fan, an NBA fan, I don't think so many Americans are too aware of like the system abroad.
It's you could not be more right there. I mean, I'm not trying to be detrimental. I myself didn't know anything about European basketball until I came over here to play. Really, I didn't know. I mean, I knew about the EuroLeague a little bit, but like I didn't know how the leagues work. I didn't know what kind of money people were making. Anything really, like any detail. So there's definitely a vacuum of knowledge as to how this whole thing works.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is just from me, like just as a viewer, I would say, of course, the EuroLeague or really like this level of skills a little lower, but the type of play is different, even than in the NBA.
Yeah, way different. I think it's much better. The style of EuroLeague play for the most part is very team oriented, and
Yeah.
it's much better basketball in my opinion than watching an NBA game where you watch one player take 30 or 40 shots a night. Um, and regular season NBA bores me to death. It's terrible
There's
quality in
no
my opinion.
defense.
It's horrible in my opinion. Granted, I'm biased. I'm a European basketball player now, but it's terrible. And I think European basketball, for the most part, especially EuroLeague, because that's super high level, but EuroLeague basketball is really, really good and really fun to watch. And NBA regular season playoffs is different because the intensity is so high. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
no
think it's
playoffs. Of course, playoffs is different. But I
yeah,
think like another thing that a lot of Americans just like assume is that and understandably, I'd say, is that the pay is not that good in Europe, and in some leagues it's not that good, but if you're playing like in your league, for instance, or in Israel or in a lot of these leagues, like the pay is really solid.
Well, there's a huge, like the you can make you can be making like $1,000 a month playing in Europe, and you can be making over $100,000 a month.
Yeah, if you're in
Like,
England, obviously it's a little different than if you're in, Spain.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I know one of my teammates last year for Maccabi. He started out his rookie year playing for free. Like the team wasn't paying him,
In
and he was
Israel?
no, no, no. I think it was like Hungary or Bulgaria or
Yeah, okay.
someplace
Yeah.
like that. He was playing for free just for the opportunity to be seen and try to get a contract, and then he goes from that to making hundreds of thousands of dollars in one season.
I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can make more money in Europe as a top player than in the NBA as like one of the worst players.
Well, the best players in Europe make more than the minimum contract in the
Yeah.
NBA for
Yeah.
sure. Another thing going for us over here is that a lot of clubs will pay your taxes.
Oh, wow,
So
that's fun.
most of us sign net contracts, which means the club will pay your apartment, car, taxes, agent, all these extra little like fees and stuff, so
Good
that
idea.
the number that you agree to is basically the number that's going into your bank account. So that is a nice plus when you think about
Yeah.
a EuroLeague player might sign I'll say a $1 million contract. That's worth at least 2 million in the NBA, because that $2 million player in the NBA has to pay taxes, agent, find a house, car, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's a whole lot to be said for playing over here. But the NBA is the NBA, and playing well in the NBA means you get your ceiling is crazy, and
Oh
the
yeah.
amount of money players are making now in the NBA is amazing.
Oh my, yeah, it's the last like 5 years has just it's blown up on it, and that's why I'm
Well, it's great because as a basketball player, it just means that that's how popular basketball is now. Because obviously, it's coming from the revenue. The players in the league have a revenue share, so obviously the players are earning this money by having people watch and buy their jerseys and stuff like that. So it's just great to see that the game is growing and that they can make this kind of money.
yeah, that's true. When you were in Israel, did they also pay your taxes, or is that just in Europe?
Yeah, yeah. So I signed net contracts with Maccabi as well.
Oh wow, I had genuinely no idea about all that, so that's why that really means you can keep everything. It's amazing. Do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. It's nice because I mean it makes sense too, because a lot of guys aren't from there. So for example, an American playing in Israel wouldn't know how to get an apartment or get a car or stuff like that. So this way the club just provides it all for them.
So
Or how
when
to pay taxes in a foreign country. So, so the club just does it for them.
so when a European player comes to the NBA, they have to figure all that stuff out on their own then. On the
Yeah.
off.
Oh, I assume their agent helps them, but yeah, yeah. The like Luka Doncic has to pay his own taxes in Dallas. Well,
Well,
maybe not in Dallas because Texas isn't
yeah, I
Texas.
think in Texas he's
You
okay.
know what I mean? Yeah, his federal taxes.
Texas is fine. Oh wow. See, I'm now I'm being educated.
Yeah. See, there you go.
I don't expect it, but it always happens. So
Happy to help.
we'll end right there with a little tax lesson. Jake Cohen, thank you for coming on. Thank you for letting me bother you. Where can we find you? Is there anything you want to plug?
No,
Like
no,
your Instagram, none of that.
no. That doesn't matter. It's just social media. Don't take it too seriously. No, that'll be my plug. Don't take it too seriously.
Well, I do take it too seriously, so too late.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I had a really good time.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Everyone, stay safe.